Hello, and welcome to my little recap of the track day I took on October 26th, 2019. Isn't going to be anything more than just my analysis of the footage I took and everything that went on during that day, so in case any of you guys are wondering about going to a Road America track day in the Novice class, you can get a perspective on that. But without further ado, I'll try to get into this and show the footage as soon as possible. The day started out with a meeting that had all the groups, Novice, Intermediate, and Advanced together, just as a reminder of safety and expectations on the track. After that one, the Novice group actually stayed around for a different class meeting for other information that we would need, since it would be mostly catered towards first-time people who are at the track. After that meeting, we went to the go-kart course they have there, and that was more to warm up our cars and familiarize ourselves with some techniques that we could put onto the full track after that. The go-kart track was actually a little tighter than you would think it to be. The turns on there were sharp for a full-size vehicle, but it did help you understand the process of lines and making sure you set up different turns correctly. And after a little bit of doing the track by myself, there was even an instructor that got in the car with me to give me some tips on which way I should be facing, steering position, and things to just try to continue to improve upon as I was going onto the full track. I tried to be pretty mellow as far as my driving on the go-kart track, simply because I understood that my brakes and my tires, I didn't want to get those crazy overheated before I even got a chance to put them onto the full-sized course. So I tried to make sure that I kept my speed pretty low, and I basically attempted to not brake at all, just so that I would have the full potential available to me once we got up to the higher speeds. After we finished up on the go-kart course, we actually headed back to get lined up into the false grid for our first actual exercise we were running on the full-sized course, where we were going to do what they called a lead-follow exercise. What happened is that they split us up into smaller groups apart from our separate two groups they had, and we would go around the course in a line behind one of their Corvette pace cars. And what would happen is that you would take a full lap in your line. No passing would really occur during this. You go around the entire lap of the course, and then at the time that you would essentially cross the finish line, the pace car would turn on their turn signal. The first car that was behind the pace car would move out of line. The other cars would shift up to being the second car right behind the pace car, and the first car would then be in the last position. And you would do this repeatedly for about half an hour, to the point where everyone would have a chance to be right behind the pace car to see how the track was supposed to be run. In the first session, we weren't going very fast. We averaged about 60 miles per hour going around the entire course, minusing all of the turns in it. So there wasn't a true sense of trying to go as fast as possible, more of a sense of getting yourself familiar with the line of the course, making sure you were executing your turns correctly, and trying to get yourself as smooth as possible before you would increase the speeds. Of course, after you got familiar with the course, the pace car would then increase its speed. So you would actually start to pick up the pace, and in the corners you would have to really focus on the line you take, where you enter, to make sure that you were able to keep up with them. And this served as a good learning experience so that you understood where your braking had to change, where your steering would stay put, but how you had to match the speed you would need to enter the turn. That way no incidents would occur. At certain points during the session, we would actually catch up to an older gentleman who was driving a Mustang where he was alone and he was going at a slower speed than we would be going, which was fine because he was just learning the course and getting a feel for his car. And that we would have to stay behind him for a majority of the time, making sure that once he got to the finish, we were able to take our group around his as they exited off into the pits. After our first session was over, we had about an hour-long lunch break until we had to go back to the classroom to talk about a more in-depth perspective on each of the turns of the Road America course. This was really helpful in my opinion because he gave you a lot of markers you could look for and making sure you were turning in where you should, what apexes you were supposed to clip, making sure that you were going in the most dedicated line possible and that you weren't getting off course when you were able to not. During the break, I was also able to review the GoPro footage I had captured from our first section, so I was making sure that I was following how I was turning into corners a lot earlier than I should be, and it was probably hindering a lot of my abilities to keep up with the group. After that meeting, we went back on course for another lead-follow session, which was again about 30 minutes. This time, though, the pace cars understood what levels we were at, and we were going a lot faster than before. And for me in particular, I felt like I was very confident in my car's abilities, and after a little bit, we actually got away from the other two cars that were in my group. After a while, I saw the Civic Type R in my group go off course for reasons that I was unaware of, and then it was just me and the other 350Z behind me. So we started taking the course at another fairly brisk pace, and I was keeping up with the Corvette the best I could. And after a little bit, I noticed that the other 350Z was not behind us. Unfortunately, I found out later that he had spun out on one of the turns, and we were going to be alone for the rest of the session. On this last lap that I took with the pace car, we were still going at a pretty high pace, and I realized a little too late that we were going to be handling this course without any other cars, so I was working really hard to keep up with the Corvette. Unfortunately, me working so hard got the best of me, and I made a mistake on corner 5. In the moment, I was pretty shook by the experience as I tried to keep up with the Corvette after I recovered. However, because of the footage I was able to capture, I was able to pinpoint exactly what had gone wrong in the situation. The first matter to address was that my brakes were too hot to be braking at the point I did. I should have been braking a lot earlier due to the condition of my brakes. The second thing that happened is that I turned into the corner a lot too early. So by the time I realized I was going into it at too wide of a radius, I jerked my hands to the left to try to recover, and what happened is that my front tire started to slip and I understeered off the course into the rumble strip. Fortunately, I was able to recover and everything about the car mechanically was fine. The bad part though is that I had gone 4 wheels off the course, which did make them have to black flag me off the course on my final lap. So I did go in and have to talk to one of the instructors about what had happened briefly. Since the session was over after that point, we had parked our cars and we went back in for one last class session on what the passing was to be for our group at the end of the day. This mostly involved where to point on top of your car so that the other car that you were allowing to pass knew that you were okay with them passing, and understanding the passing points, that way we weren't doing any illegal maneuvers. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that my GoPro had not been charging in between sessions, so I was unable to record any of the footage from the track session. But, fortunately, my dad was there who was recording on the sidelines, so I have a couple clips that I can show you from just his camera alone. Even though the track day isn't competitive, it was still very helpful to be able to drive my car and understand how it would handle in a real racing situation following a line on a real racing course. I found this especially helpful since I had done a number of suspension modifications and I have really wide tires on my car that I was hoping would give me the benefit, and I was happy to find out that there was definitely benefits to the modifications we had done. I will be uploading the raw footage from this track day, so if you guys wanted to check out exactly every second of what had happened on the track, feel free to. I'll make sure that I have them listed in the order that happened in the day. And again, unfortunately I didn't have that footage from the last session, which in my opinion was the most fun because there weren't any instructors, it was just you and your car and the other people in your group. But I'll make sure that the rest of that footage is up there, that way you guys can check out everything that had gone on that day and the procedures happening in live time. I highly recommend the Road America track days, especially starting in a novice group if you're unsure of your abilities. However, if you know exactly what you're doing, the intermediate and advanced groups are well enough for you guys to get out there on the track and be able to see that course for yourself. I'll be trying to upload any of the other track dates I have in the future, but until then, thank you so much for watching, and I'm open to any feedback you guys leave in the comments about the video itself, or even the driving that you saw, because I know that I'm not exactly on par quite yet with what I should be at. So, see you guys in the next one.